Hey guys, we ready to get further down the road with this thing. Now, before we get started, Happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and all of those. And just remember something. This time of year is a good time to help others that aren't as fortunate as you, and don't forget the critters. Animal shelters and all of these things, they suffer this time of year. I like critters, and I don't like to see them suffer, so reach in your pocket and help them out. It's a worthy cause. Okay, last time we were doing some mortising and all of these things. Gotten some emails, and I wrote about it in my newsletter about sharpening a mortise chisel. Well, I'm going to show you how I do it. Now, this is a 1/2 inch. I rarely use something that big. But the reason I chose the 1/2 inch to show you is because what I've got here is just a little Dremel stone. And this thing's about 3/8 across the back. It's about 3/4 of an inch. I don't even know where I got it. In the newsletter, I made mention. I know that Woodcraft has got some. It's just a cone shape. And it's just a stone. And on the smaller chisels, you can just go right up in the end of it. But what I actually do, now watch close, on a bigger chisel is I just get in here and I just rotate it. And it'll sharpen and just polish it up, just beautiful. Now, like I said, I normally use, rarely do I go past a 3/8 chisel. Now, the other thing I do is I use one of these little diamond hones. And then on the outside right here, a lot of times these little points will get a little burred. And if you take this diamond hone, if you get this good in, and just simply, a superfine file will do the same thing. And just dress them up. Now let's go to the bit. The bit's a little different, and it's a little different than a regular drill bit, because you've got a cutting edge that just goes around right here. Same stone or a little file. You can just dress it right up. Keep on cutting. Does a nice job. And the sharper you keep them, the better they do. Keep them clean too. All right. Okay. I came up with what's going to be my final color on this. Now, why am I talking about color right now? Well, we're getting ready to put the moldings and things on. And I want to get everything sanded pretty well before I do that. Sanding removes wood. So, if you fit everything and then you go back and sand it, well, you can get a little off. I've been accused of being sanded a number of times. Anyway, here's my color. Now, you go back to the old New England maple, especially when you go back and you see a lot of them that were done and just kind of varnished or left natural. They turn a rusty orange look, and I really like that. It has, I don't want to say orange, it has a hue to it, kind of a rusty hue to it. Anyway, so here's what I did. I'm using the General Finishes water-based dye. I'm using 1 part of the orange to 3 parts of the light brown. Repeat this. 1 part orange, 3 part light brown. Now, this makes a color that we had made and have used forever called New England Maple. And a lot of you watching this know exactly the color I'm telling you. Of any single color I've ever used, this color is 9 out of 10 pick it. 9 out of 10 customers will pick it to go on Tiger Maple. Let's look at it. Now, when we sanded this, I want you to pay attention. You see up here where you still see all the curls showing? And for those of you who have the finishing DVDs, you understand what I'm telling you when I talk about a trace coat. Now, some woods we don't want a trace coat. You wouldn't want to go give a heavy trace coat to a regular maple because it'll blotch. If you're going to do that, you want to use something like a water-based stain that goes on just goes on the surface. Because if you don't, you get a lot of blotching. And that's very hard to get out. But in this case, when you're trying to pop the grain, as they want to call it, or accentuate your figure, it's actually a blotch. It's just a control. And what makes this figure jump and look so nice is that it blotches, if you will, into, a pattern or a design. And what that is, what it amounts to, this is a hard grain and a soft grain. Soft grains obviously absorb more than a hard. So what we do is, when we were picking out our wood, we put a color on here and we let it dry. Now we've come back and sanded it. We're not trying to sand it out of the curl. We don't want to. Let's think about that a minute. What will happen is, as we dye this has been dyed. We sanded it with some 120. Got everything flush and level. Now on your corners here, take you a good sanding block and block sand it with the grain. Keep your corners nice and clean and crisp and even. Now what happens in this is when we dye it, now I tell you what, sometimes for a trace coat using a thin down black dye works really sweet, because we really want to get a dramatic contrast of the curl against the background, which is the hard maple, which is the harder part of the grain. Now this is just one of my little test panels, and just to understand, this has just been roughed over with a little bit of 180 real quick. And as we keep building, it just keeps accentuating. In other words, what's happening now is the soft curl has been dyed twice. When we sand this back with 180 and dye it again, then what's going to happen, which will be our final, then what's going to happen is our curl will have been dyed 3 times. So it's really going to start to pop out of there. Now see, this color's got, I don't know how to, it's just beautiful to me. I like it. But of course you can feel free to, use whatever you want. But it does nice. And like I said, the reason I'm even showing you this now is I know some of you out here are building, and if this is the color that you want, here's your formula. But like I said, we've sanded it with 120. Now we'll dye it again, sand it with 180, and then we'll hit it one more time. I'd never go past 180 on Tiger Maple. The more you sand something, the finer grit you sand it, it starts to close the pores in it. And we really don't want that. We want this thing to take this dye readily. And we get this on, get it dry once it's all done, then we're going to put a coat of oil on it to really deepen our color and give us that, what we call chatoyance. And then we'll come back and finish it with the top coat. And this will be a screamer. All right, one more time. 1 part orange, General Finishes dye stain. 3 parts light brown. That's my color. Let me see if I can get a vote from the peanut gallery. Jeff Fleischer's back here. Ed's back here. What do y'all think? Say loud.
Looks great.
They're bashful. They're grinning and nodding. All right. We're going to start out on this getting the base on. And we've got our base rough cut, so we just got to fit it. Now, one of the first things I'm going to do is I've got me a piece of MDF cut to the, well, it will be in a minute. Ed, I thought you cut that to the same width. Huh? You must have inched it. You know what he's talking about, guys? He measured, I know you've done this. You use the 1-inch mark on your tape measure to be accurate, and it says 5 when it really should be 4 because you overhang it an inch, and you cut it 5. But hey, that's a whole lot better than cutting it at 3. All right, we're going to make the pattern out of this. Now, one of the things we're going to do is we're going to get around here to the table saw because I'm going to cut this on my miter slide, on the table saw. Okay, the miter gauge. Now I've got a chop saw back here. And I could very easily use that. But I've got a 12-inch. A lot of guys only have a 10-inch. And a 10-inch is not going to give us the height we need to be able to chop this. And then a lot of guys don't have one at all. But you got a miter gauge for your table saw. So that's where we're going to go to get our moldings cut. Now I'm going to tell you something else too. I like cutting miters on a table saw. All right, before I start cutting, one of the things I want to do is I want to route a profile on the top edge of this. Now, what I'm going to do is a bead. And basically it's just a round over bit that's stepped down to create another edge, and you'll see what I mean. What I'm using is a 3/8 radius round over. Bottom bearing, just 3/8 radius, round over bit. But now my stock is 7/8. All right, what I've got is about a 3/16 reveal there. And that's pretty heavy, but I also know that we're going to be sanding this pretty good, so it's going to be coming down. Now at this stage is where what we'd do is take a block with some 180 or something on it, and we would sand this and do our trace coat and do the whole deal. But we can also do it when it's done, which is what we're going to wind up doing. Now let's go to the table saw. All right, this is probably one of the few places that I wish I had a right tilt table saw. Because a right tilt, my blade would be leaning, of course, to my right, And to me, that's a little easier. And yeah, I could actually cut my base. I could cut my base fine with the miter fine with the face down. But if I get any chip out, it's going to be on my face. And I don't like that. Here's what I'm after. So I've actually switched to just a regular little miter slide, came with my saw. Doesn't have to be fancy. Now the other thing I did is I took my mock-up pieces that we have when we made the face frames and the angle, and I set my blade to that angle. And like we talked about when we did those face frames, you know, if it's 22.5, great. It's not, as long as it fits, who cares? You know, we're not going to quibble over a degree or so, you know. And anyway, I went over to my case and I set it up and I made sure that it was lining up and it fit nice. Make sure your miter gauge is square to the blade and your blade is set at the correct angle. Then it's just a simple matter, cut it. Now we were talking about blades. A chop saw, when you've got a piece like this standing up, now if you've got some of them, you know, you can angle it and lay it out. The blade is rotating, the blade is digging it out. You understand what I'm saying? When it's on a chop saw and this blade is angled and you come right down, it's digging it out, like digging a hole with a shovel. And you get deflection. And it's just not the best way to do it. If you stand it vertical, then as long as you've got a chop saw that's tall enough to do it, you're good. When you stand it vertical, that's better, because then the blade is cutting into and creating a shear coming into the wood. That gives you the cleanest edge. Okay? But it's also tracking down. Now this is a point where, you know me, you know that measure twice, cut once, I measure it 3 times and cut it twice. Cut it, leave it a little long, then come back and just take a bare little shear off of it. That gives you that keen, fine edge. The thing with a table saw is a table saw cuts with the teeth going down. They're shearing down as they cut. That's what gives me this clean edge, okay? That's why I do not want to be on this side, because I have a left tilt. If I had a right tilt, obviously I would. So then, once we've done that, we've got to cut everything to length and fit. Now I'm going to do it with this piece of MDF. I'm going to make sure I'm right before I go too far. All I'm after right now is getting all my lengths set up. When I say all of them, the main one is going to be this front right here. Now the difficult part of this, if I was cutting with that blade angled out, I would be able to see my mark. But because I'm going to have to reverse it, I have to translate my mark to the other side. And this goes back again. Sneak up on it. And like I said, you know, if I'm going to mess this up, I just need to do it with this piece of MDF right now. Let me see where I'm at. I want to be dead on these corners. All right, I'm a little strong here, so I'm going to go a little more. I done cut this thing twice and it's still too long. Let me tell you something. That's a whole lot better than cutting it twice and it's still too short. Somebody's going to ask me what kind of blade I'm using here. This is that Freud Fusion. It's at it's a 40 tooth. All right, that ain't bad for a country boy. We'll do it. We'll do it. That'll do. All right. So this is the way this is going to go. And this is the way I'm going to cut it. Now all I'm going to do is make sure that I got enough out here to get past my little bit wide there on my case just to give me room. And I want to make sure I don't have any bad ends. So that's going to be my start point. And what I'm showing you is I'm talking to myself. I know you think that. What I did was I took a piece that I had cut and mocking up, and I marked it for how wide the side is in here. And I just set it up here and made sure that I had enough. I've got a little nasty end there. I could cut that out and be able to get my angle where I'm starting. And also the other thing that's going to happen is I've got to reverse the angle on the little end piece because it's going to wind up going the opposite direction, so I fold it. Now, a smart thing to do on that is to do that now while it's long. So what we can do is we can translate this down. We don't have to get super accurate at this point. So what I want to do is I'm going to cut that piece by going, I'm actually going to go in reverse on it. You know, I don't think I am. I think I'm on. Yeah, I am. Because I'll still have room to trim if I need to. This blade cuts pretty nice. That's pretty nice. Should be ready to rock on that corner. That'll work. Looks good. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to translate that piece of MDF over to this and cut the other length. Now I know exactly where I need to be. But I'm still going to sneak up on it. See how much we took out? Makes for a nice match. Now I'm going to leave this probably 30 seconds long. Can't see it, the blade spinning. I'm not smart doing anyway. I gotta do it. Now I know when I did this one, it was just a hair, a little hair. It could have used just a little bit more length. So I'm leaving just a little bit more there, and I think I'll be okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut the back angle on this. See what I got. Something ain't right, boys. Something bad. Looks like it's fitting. That shouldn't be. All right, we come back. We're going to look at making a design and put it all together.